I think most of Gen Z and even millennials can probably remember this time period between, I'd say, like 2010 to 2018, where social media was still in its growing phase. It was still spreading its roots. And what started as a way to show stupid videos to the world or share status updates with your friends quickly evolved into a toxic microcosm of money hungry degenerates. And hear me out. I'm going to explain all of this. I'd say between 2010 and 2016 to 2018, Instagram and YouTube dominated. There was some other stuff like Twitter and Vine and whatnot, but at least in those times, I think that most of the youth were grabbing onto platforms like Instagram to share pictures with their friends or follow their friends, and then YouTube just to watch like stupid funny videos. People like Smosh and Kev Jumba. And between this time, in my opinion, like the online community was overall pleasant. Obviously, there's the typical stranger danger and don't talk to people online, and you get the couple bad actors. But for the most part, right, it was innocent humor, it was stupid humor, it was just people trying to make each other laugh, gameplay videos, cheesy YouTube comedy, vines. There was the Instagram hashtag follow for follow, TBH. Everyone remembers those. Throwback Tuesdays, Throwback Thursdays. I think COVID was a big turning point where TikTok had really started gaining traction, and so has streaming, right? And I think I mean, obviously, COVID was a crazy time period where everyone's stuck in their house. So it makes sense that people would turn to a digital form of entertainment, especially when they couldn't leave their house. So that cheesy, innocent humor, it was still there, of course, but it started to kind of die a little bit. TikTok and streaming were a breeding ground for gooners, drama, etc. And the metric was likes and views. So people did whatever they could to grab the algorithm's attention. And so the youth became quickly absorbed into this world that TikTok was pushing on them and streaming was pushing on them. And if you ask me, like, I don't even think it started in a bad way. Because if you remember the early days of TikTok, it was just people dancing to music. But over time, the term influencer started getting coined and people were pushing things other than dancing. Maybe it was like promoting fitness content or promoting like some makeup brand or something like that, which is fine, right? But then you get the few people that promote crazy things like going in public and starting fights or popping steroids or something like that, right? You get the few people that go a little too far, and just like dancing and makeup and fitness and all that stuff has its own niche community, those bad actors gain a community of people that actually support what they're pushing or simply think they're entertaining or funny, so they follow them. Now, I think that for the average like 20 something year old, you were able to see content and know that, hey, this is probably not something that I should replicate. A lot of us have the common sense to know that. But the problem with TikTok is that a lot of these people watching this are kids. They're young, they're impressionable, and they don't really have the experience to differentiate right from wrong. So if they see something that's funny, if they see something that is making somebody a lot of money, they're not going to think of the nuances of doing so. They're just going to go ahead and try to replicate that. Quite literally a poison. In my opinion, social media is a drug. It's something that you need to moderate and you need to control like every other substance that you might take in your life, whether that's coffee, nicotine, or literally hard drugs. You need to be cautious and wary of what you are consuming. Like I said, what used to be a mere false sense of reality is steadily becoming reality as more and more impressionable people adopt the mindsets that they learn from these platforms. It's like a feedback loop of runaway delusion. Think about it. When people were making vines, it was pretty obvious that they were just joking. It was cheesy, it was stupid, it was a joke, right? Nowadays, you have these real life streamers that are in Miami or in LA and they literally go and mess with people. They go and fight with people. You can't say that's a joke anymore. There's no clear distinction, there's no line in the sand that you're not crossing where people are aware that it's a joke, even if it is a joke. But once you start pushing your content on people that are not willing to participate, we're not talking about jokes anymore. Harmless pranks and pranking people like that there is a zone of acceptability and there's a zone of like this is too much, right? Harmless pranks versus like straight up fucking with somebody. I think social media has a bad tendency to push what's called the hyperreality effect, which is just like some sociological concept where your map becomes more real to people than the territory. And what I mean by that is like, imagine if you were playing Subnautica 2, like I am in the background, or you're playing GTA, and you as a player, like you know the map is fake. You know where, you know it's not real life. You know where all the points of interest are. You know where all the resources are. You know where all the convenience stores are. You know where to find the rare collectibles, whatnot, right? If one day the line for you becomes so blurred that you cannot differentiate between that video game map and your real life, and you think that you live in that game, you have a problem, right? You're completely out of touch. Another big problem with social media is pushing doom scrolling. And I think that this has more of an effect on people than they realize. The constant need for short bursts of dopamine and consistent absorption of like clout chasing content cannot be good for you. Back in the old days of YouTube and entertainment that way, we were watching movies, we were watching long form gameplays, long videos, right? You pick a video that you're interested in, you watch it for like at least 10 minutes. And then sometime during COVID, they started pushing, I guess even before that, right? With like apps like Vine and Musically, they start pushing short form content, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, like significantly shorter content. And you can constantly get it, right? It's like, oh, I didn't like this clip, skip, skip, swipe, swipe, move, move, right? Doom scrolling. Beyond just absorbing like toxic content from people, this is ruining people's attention spans. Seriously. And I know this. I tried this myself, right? Around COVID area, I was using TikTok a lot. I was sitting there for hours just scrolling through content, just watching. And sometimes during class, like I was in college at the time, sometimes during college class, I'm just sitting there trying to listen to my professor and I literally cannot lock in. Like I have to fidget, I have to grab my phone, look at something. Like I literally need a hit of dopamine. I've become that much of a degenerate that I need a hit of some sort of entertainment. Thomas, I realized it was a problem, right? Where even sitting through an exam was a challenge. So I deleted TikTok from my phone. I deleted all social media for like 6 months. And then I eventually went back to it just because I wanted to know what was going on with people in the world. And like having that reset helped a lot. I felt like I could focus. I felt like I could actually absorb what people were telling me. I felt like I could sit still. And so this is all damage done by the new type of content that people like to consume, which is this the short form content. And even now, like I've seen people, they can't even sit through a movie anymore. They can't even watch a full length YouTube video. This is how bad people's attention spans have gotten. Moving away from the attention span problem. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily a problem, but this shows you that the power of social media and the reach it has, where new generations, each generation, have learned their own lingo specifically through social media. Words like, I don't know, like the 6'7" dumbass meme or like cooked. These are terms that would not have as much traction had it not been for the power of social media. I think that a lot of regions, especially in the United States, and even different school districts might have their own lingo just develop from, inside jokes and whatnot, which is typically how it is. Like in my high school, we had a lot of terminology that didn't reach beyond our town simply because everyone in the town had a similar experience. So we all pushed the same language. But when you have the whole country saying words, when you have the whole world saying words, people in other countries as well, that shows you the influence that these platforms can actually have. And you're influencing youth. That's dangerous. And then, of course, the big problem, influencers feeding off naive and impressionable youth. So I hate to be that boomer, but like teens are dumber now than ever before. If you ever had a conversation with somebody like between, I don't know, with someone like 15, 16, you'll realize how stupid these kids have gotten, how lost their lives are. Remember that old question where you go, "Hey, what do you want to do when you get older?" Right? At least for Gen Z, when I was younger, we would say things like, "Oh, I want to be an engineer. Oh, I want to be an astronaut. Oh, I want to be a biomedical engineer." Some real profession, right? A true profession. You ask these kids now, you're gonna get a lot of answers like streaming, OnlyFans, TikTok star, and of course, not most of these kids are not going to go into that, or maybe they will. I don't know. But if your kid is saying that they want to pursue assaulting people on stream or shaking their ass on OnlyFans, you have a major problem. Young girls are dressing older than they should, and young boys can name more OnlyFans models than actors. That is creepy, and that is a testament to how fast our society's brains are literally devolving. And honestly, like, you can partially blame the youth, but at the end of the day, like, they're youth, they're kids. You have to guide them the right way. I think a huge thing that you should blame is like the creators. I don't think creators realize how much responsibility they have for the content they push on their audience. Creators strive for impressions, since that ultimately drives their profit, with no care in the world of who or how the consumers get their content and how they'll be affected by it. And honestly, like I kind of see it akin to casino owners. They provide the resources to consume something, and they push all the responsibility on the consumers. Like casino owners, like they'll make a casino look really fun and bright inside. They'll serve alcohol. They won't even put windows because they don't want you to know what time of day it is. They want you to lose track of time. They want you to stay. They want you to get sucked into their ecosystem the same way that these TikTok creators and these social media influencers want people to consume their content, whether that's they like it, they hate it, they can't keep their eyes off of it, they can't stop fighting in the comment section, and they want you to lose time in their content because it makes them money. As the years are gone by, like between 2018 to now, this has been a crazy 8 years. Like the evolution of it is actually a crazy thing to watch in real time. There are rampant clout chasers. Rampant. It's bad. People chase clout rather than genuine interactions. And this incentivizes a whole array of content, whether it's like fake kindness or hated personalities. There are tons of impressionable people watching this stuff, and they honestly cannot differentiate between what is real and what is simply staged content. And that's not even really their fault either. A lot of the people that make this content, they don't tell you, they don't really reveal where the line is. A lot of people, their whole persona is based off of making staged content. And because staged content is easier to make entertaining, they keep doing it. And they don't tell anybody that it's fake. Kids will mimic what is entertaining and what is funny. They will emulate what they see without understanding the nuances, like I said. So when you see this fake content, unrealistic guidelines, kids think that is real, and then they go and try to make that real, right? This is the point I was talking about earlier, where what used to be a false reality is becoming a reality because everyone is buying into the same lie. In many ways, the toxicity of social media is not even limited to the youth. What I mean by this is like the prevalence of confirmation bias. Whether you want to believe it or not, social media is an echo chamber. It connects us to content and people that think the same and affirm our beliefs, or the opposite, right? It connects us to people that have wildly different ideas than us, which makes us want to argue with them in the comment section, right? It engages us either way. You either hate it or you love it, but either way, you're engaged. But back to what I was saying with confirmation bias is that people crave validation, whether it's from likes, comments, or simply seeing content that makes us not feel alone. And what does this do to people? You get some wildly delusional people at all ages. You're a kid, you're Gen Z, you're millennial, you're a boomer. Like, there's delusional people everywhere in all walks of life. If you connect delusional people with other delusional people, they just feed their delusions to each other. And then some people that might be on the fence or don't really believe in this, they get wrapped up into this trap as well. And then these people go outside, touch grass, and then they push these ideas on other people, thinking that it's a widely accepted way of thinking. When in reality, it was really just you and like maybe 100,000 people. That is not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things. And that is not if only 100,000 people think your way in a world with, I don't know, I don't even know what number we're at, 9 billion. That is not a popular mentality. I'm sorry to say. But I think this is super apparent. And then last but not least, so in many ways, social media can destroy people's outlooks on life. I see a lot of content of all the different sorts. Super left wing, super right wing, some people that are grounded, some people that are just high in the sky. But one of the big problems I see is a learned sense of helplessness from constantly seeing negative content. Your algorithm on TikTok is very tailorable by you. The content that you spend more time watching, the content that you leave comments on, the content that you like, the content that you search, It affects your algorithm. They consistently try to push you more content that you will engage with because the creators of TikTok want you on TikTok. And then the creators within TikTok making content want you on their content. It is basically just you're in a massive convention of door to door salesmen that are all trying to sell you solar panels. Everybody wants you. Everybody wants to have a conversation with you and give you their flyer, and they really want you to buy a solar panel. So, if one day you get caught up watching, oh, let me go catch up on news about an ongoing war, and you see children dying, and you see houses getting bombed, and you see people fighting over food on the street, and you keep seeing that. TikTok's like, oh, this guy likes this content. Let's keep feeding it to him. Oh, and then you see another news report of a different war, and then, oh, you hear about a virus on a cruise ship, and on this cruise ship, and on that cruise ship, and you think the world is going to end again. You can be as strong minded as you want, but you have to be aware that the world that surrounds you, the environment that you put yourself in, has an effect on you, whether that's the way you think, the way you feel, your perception of the area. It's really difficult to turn a complete blind eye when the world is just pelting you with this kind of content. If you open up TikTok and you're already addicted to the dopamine boost, right? So you can't get off it that easily, and all you see is negative content, you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna feel pretty bad. You're gonna feel pessimistic about the world. You're gonna think, why am I even trying to finish school? Why am I even working and building my career when the world has nothing for me, when my country hates me, when I'm never gonna be able to buy a house, when we're probably gonna get drafted, right? You gotta get off social media sometimes, right? The world has always been an imperfect place. Throughout all decades, there's been some conflict and some BS that people have to deal with that makes them question whether life is worth living. But then, especially these days when you're surrounded by social media and content like this, you gotta know that there's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of people that are trying to hook you into their content by being negative. And you gotta realize that the world that social media pushes is not realistic. I did mention that this false sense of reality becomes a reality, and that's in some regards, but I'm not saying that it's a one-to-one representation of what real life is. It might be a pretty good representation of what a specific aspect of it is. As long as there's bad actors, it will never be a full representation of real life. I also think that social media degrades people's social skills for some of the same reasons that I mentioned, right? Whether that's you constantly stay on your phone inside all the time, you never go out and touch grass, or it's because, you trust it too much. You consume too much of its media and you think that it represents real life. So then you go and take what you just learned from social media and you try to apply it to a real life context at a bar or talking to somebody on the street. Those are two very different people that you're going to talk to. And what you thought was, common sense. What you thought was something that everybody knew because everybody has TikTok. As soon as you meet someone that doesn't use social media, and there's a lot of people, you'll realize like how out of tune that you've become because you were digging your nose into social media. And you also realize that there's a lot of things that that person doesn't know because they're not on social media, good and bad, right? My point is that no matter how widespread you think an idea is, how popular you think a piece of content is, there's a lot of people that have no idea what you're talking about. And you can never really stretch concepts like across the world unless it's like an axiom in physics. The last piece that I'll say is destroying people's outlook on the world is constant unrealistic comparison. For example, right, I started becoming kind of interested in learning how to surf. I have never surfed before. I have bodyboarded before, but I wanted to learn how to surf. And all of a sudden, after searching like a couple videos of people surfing, TikTok has been pushing me these crazy edits of people living in Hawaii and Bali and whatnot, living the life. They live in these bungalows. They booked a one-way ticket from their hometown. They quit their job, and all they do is surf. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. And for some people, it's realistic. Like maybe they're just, they worked hard, they saved some money and they're going. Maybe they have daddy's money and they're just using that. But like sometimes it's unrealistic, like that Quitting your job and moving, booking a one-way ticket to go surf is not a realistic path for a lot of people. Another thing is like you might like watches, you might like cars, you might like materialistic things. That's fine. And you might have a pretty humble collection. And then let's say social media finds out that, hey, this guy likes watches and cars. They're gonna start showing you content of like unattainable stuff. You're gonna see a Jacob and Co. watch, a $5 million watch on someone's wrist. You're gonna see some dude with a modded out rare car, I don't know, Nissan Skyline. You're gonna see somebody with a Bugatti, a super expensive car that's out of the discussion for most people. And you're gonna sit there and you're gonna feel terrible. I don't really want to say that forcing these like depressing comparisons is intentional, but it's just something we do, right? If we're into something and we see somebody that has something better than us, we're gonna feel some type of way. Whether that's awe, envy, depression, optimism, whatever it is, you're gonna feel something. And I think that if you're comparing yourself to some guy, if you're working class, you work from the bottom up and you got yourself a nice $300 watch, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna be comparing yourself with some dude in France with a billionaire dad that had everything handed to him and never worked a day in his life, yet has super nice things. The world varies so much that you cannot make these comparisons. You can only compare to from where you were. That's your point of reference, right? If all you could afford before was a $50 watch and now you can afford a $500 watch, hell yeah, dude. You improved your hobby 10x. Like, that's impressive. But if you compare your $500 watch to some guy with a $10 million watch, keep in mind that you went from a $50 watch to a $500 watch. That guy was born out of the womb with a silver spoon in his mouth and a $10 million watch on his wrist. Not a fair comparison. So my point in saying all of this is go touch grass, go outside, go to the park, go to a restaurant with friends, go play pickleball with your mom. I myself fell into a lot of these traps over the years, and I'll tell you, like, some of the most depressing periods have been periods where I lay in bed and just constantly get pelted by this content, this these TikToks, these YouTube shorts. Those were the most depressing times in my life. When I started getting off social media and my frontal lobe developed and I was like, wait, this is not real. I don't need to listen to this. I can make my own opinions on life. And if people don't agree with that, then they can shove it, right? Or they can swipe, whatever. Once I started doing that, I felt like my life improved a ton, right? I started doing real life things like going to see friends and traveling the world. And I'll tell you, like, there is no form of content that can bring you the same joy as seeing your friends and family and going to travel. Delete the apps or learn to stay in the mental driver's seat while you're consuming this content. I still have some of the apps. I use them a lot differently than how I used to. I don't doom scroll. And when I've had enough, I get off. I also try to make an active effort to step outside of the house and do real life things because there's a whole world out there. Why do you want to observe the world from your room? Do you really want to die knowing that you spent most of your life sitting in a room looking at a phone? Or do you want to die knowing that you've experienced everything for yourself? Like, seriously, ask yourself that question. I think an important thing too is force yourself to stay engaged for more than 30 seconds. I think this is the biggest culprit for brain rotting of the youth. Everybody has ADHD when in reality, their dopamine receptors are just shot from constantly consuming TikToks. Watch a documentary. Go learn a skill. Go watch a movie and don't touch your phone once. Leave your phone at home. Just push yourself. You can break out of the cycle, right? The ADHD is real, but not everybody has it. Okay? Let's accept that as a reality. We can't all have ADHD. And then as I mentioned before, go outside, have genuine conversations, debates, arguments with people, and you realize that life is so much different and real when you can't hide behind a screen. People on social media are assholes. People in those comments love to fight each other and say stuff to each other because they know they're just keyboard warriors. They hide behind a screen. I promise you that 99% of these people that are fighting and talking shit on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, they will not be saying any of this if they were in front of you face to face. People get confidence because they know that the average person cannot hunt them down via social media, right? They get comfortable. I think it was Mike Tyson that said something like this, where he was like, people these days have become so comfortable with talking shit without knowing how it feels to get punched in the face, something like that. Or it's like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You can apply that to social media. Like until somebody's in front of you and you're actually in danger of, hey, setting this person off, like people lose all respect. So in short, like social media is not your real life. It will never be your real life. And if it's starting to become that, you need to step back and get off.